Well, we are up and running, and good evening, and welcome back. This is the 4th edition of The Miracle Within, and we are looking at A Course in Miracles and trying to enter into it with a little bit of understanding, a little bit of empathy for what the text contains, and just generally overall looking at it from that level of what does it mean to me personally. And that really is, the most important part of what's going on here is that are you able to allow these ideas that are pretty revolutionary to enter into your consciousness? Because we do, because of our ego, have this tremendous defense system that we have set up against actually looking at the truth. And then once you actually look at the truth, then you have to be willing to lay down your belief about truth and accept it for what it is. So as I have generally started out, going to start out looking at the lesson plan here. The last 4 or 5 lessons we've looked at have been kind of setting the stage to get us to a point where we are able to acknowledge what is real and what is not real. And so we're up to lesson number 7, or pardon me, lesson number 6. And lesson number 6 is I am upset because I see something that is not there. The exercises with this idea are very similar to the preceding ones that we had already discussed over the last 3 videos. Again, it is necessary to name both the form of upset, whether it's anger or fear or worry or depression, so forth, and the perceived source very specifically for any application of the idea. So the way you would approach it is as you're looking around the room or as you're looking within, you would say, I am angry at whatever it is that has caused you your frustration because I see something that is not there. I am worried about whatever it is that you're concerned about because I see something that is not there. And this is really reinforcing the idea that the world that we are seeing is a projection that comes from our own mind. So it's kind of fun to, sit back and contemplate all of the different ideas that we have entertained over the years about this being bad and that being bad, and one form of corruption and another form of corruption. And the truth is that we are always in a state of bliss, and we are always existing within the eye and mind of God. So whenever we are indulging this worldly realm, what happens is that our mind, in truth, on a very deep level, deeply buried within the depths of the mind, is fully aware of the fact that we're with God and we are safe and we are loved and we are completely embraced and at peace. But this projection we have created of the ego, which we are embracing and trying to pamper and please at all times, that realm is the realm of strife and horror and terror and earthquakes and wars and devastation. So the realm that we exist in is never going to be reconciled with the world that we are projecting outside of us. So with this 6th step in the lesson plan, we're disassembling a lot of our old belief systems and structures. And one of the ways that we uncover some of these issues is by affirming that there is something that we are imagining and trying to hold on to, trying to believe. But the truth is, it does not exist. It is simply our own fantasy. And that creates a lot of irritation between the two aspects of the conscious and subconscious mind. So we've got, you know, our conscious mind babbling about, you know, having a spider in our dinner, or being being a victim of our bank system, or our government, or our religious institution, or wherever the victimhood lies. All of these things is what the conscious realm is trying to hold on to and make real. The unconscious realm knows that this is nonsense, and that irritation that has occurred between the conflicting realms of this split mind is causing us all of the different forms that are symptoms of our belief in a separation. So I hope that makes sense, and you can also re-access the video, go back and listen to it a second or third time if you had a little trouble following that line of thought. But basically, everything that we are experiencing in this realm is a cause of conflict and the cause of fear. And if it's not showing up in those avenues, then it's showing up as desire and lust. And, you know, we're always trying to attain, we're striving to achieve. And the mind gets very, very confused, and it gets very, very irritated. So next time that you are feeling anger, that you are feeling frustration, depression, isolation, stop and give it a little serious thought, and ask yourself, am I believing that I'm seeing something that really isn't there? And this is a very important lesson, because you know, in that early on process of unpinning our belief system to the corporeal world and to the idea of past and future, and being on that journey to live in the present, pulling us back into the moment and back into this now experience. That is a tumultuous process. And so early on, when people first are introduced to the course, if they start off with a workbook, they start making progress immediately, but sometimes it can be tumultuous. You know, you have to ride out the storm and be willing to just step into a space of acceptance and just accept what is, and look at it from the perspective of these frustrations, this anger, this upset. All of these emotional responses really are an acting out of the fact that we are seeing something that really isn't there. So as we continue to progress here a little bit, and thank you, Chris Duell. I think you're pretty awesome. They're on Facebook. I see Mel's here, Maria is here, Lauren is here. Oh, Joseph is here. So thank you all for showing up. I do appreciate it. We're going to skip forward now to lesson number 7. And this one, you know, when I was first starting to work with the course, this particular lesson was one that really cracked the egg open and helped me gain access to a much deeper level of understanding as to what was going on. Because when I did lesson number 7, it made everything like a jigsaw puzzle come together and fit together, and I got the big picture. So for me, this was a very, very important lesson. And if you really stop and sit back and think about it, you'll probably recognize the value of this lesson and its placement in this process that we're going through. So lesson number 7 says, I see only the past. This idea is particularly difficult to believe at first, yet it is the rationale for all of the preceding cases. It is the reason why nothing that you see means anything. It is the reason why you have given everything you see all the meaning that it has for you. It is the reason why you do not understand anything that you see now. It is the reason why your thoughts do not mean anything, and why they are the thing, and why they are like the things you see. It is the reason why you are never upset for the reason that you believed you were. It is the reason why you are upset because you see something that is not there. And for me, when I really expanded my mind and stopped looking at things around me with tunnel vision, I realized that I and everybody else I know and have ever encountered basically live in the past, and we reinforce that by the things that we attribute the objects around us to. In other words, this bottle of water I've got here is nice and cold, and it's very thirst quenching, but it's my memory of going into the refrigerator, picking up the bottle of water, opening it up, having a drink, and basically I'm associating it with all of these past activities. To get into this present moment can be very disorienting. It's like one of those things where you feel a little bit dizzy, and you need to grab onto something to stabilize yourself. Because when you're in the present moment, you don't have any attachment, any idea, any preconceived notion as to what any of the objects around you are, or any of the people around you are, or any of the circumstances that you're enduring really are. And that freshness, that being in this very moment, allows you to see people from an entirely different level. And once you start seeing people on that level, you start to recognize that there's a subtle glow, perhaps, or there is something different that you had never actually perceived or observed before. There is this essence of light. There is this presence that they exude. Every object, every animal, every plant, when seen in this perfect moment, is a reflection of God. And how incredible is that concept? How deep is that concept? You know, so basically, I'm not saying that God is thinking about, you know, a bottle of water. I'm saying that the bottle of water is the act of love that the earth is giving to me, the nutritional input that my perceived or imagined body needs in the moment. So I'm seeing love in everything around me. And that's the trick that the Course in Miracles opens up for us, is to stop relating to our memories, because our memories are perverse and they are conditioned by our prejudices and our desires and our belief system. So if we can stop that and stand in a moment of innocence and just look at the world around us, then all of a sudden there is this fantastic radiance that the world presents to us. We see the world through fresh eyes. We see the world as it is in this pristine moment. And this pristine moment is, in fact, eternity. I mean, how cool is that? So as soon as you can disassociate yourself from clinging to the past or projecting yourself with anticipation into the future, and just be still, just calm the mind, just stop the brain chatter, and then look around you, you will see such a fantastic expression of love that you never imagined existed there. So the lessons are definitely bringing us up to a much different way of perceiving our world. And at the same time, they are creating these little points of tension. You know, we may resist these ideas for a while. We may feel frustrated with these ideas for a while. But eventually, as we start to settle into it, we begin to realize, oh, this is a reality. I was living in this delusional state, and this is opening a new door for me. This is beckoning me to a new mountaintop. You know, one of my favorite lines by Mary Baker Eddy was that the astronomer will cease to look up at the stars and begin to look out upon the stars. And that shift in perspective is what the Course in Miracles brings to us. It gets us to a higher plateau. It gets us past these muddy boots that are in gumbo mud, good old Mississippi gumbo, that you can't pull your feet out of this mud hole. And that's our anchorage. That's our reality that our ego is constantly trying to reinforce. And so once we can get, those boots unlaced and just allow ourselves to float up out of them, we get to that next level of perceptual experience where we begin to look out upon the universe as it's unfolding. And we become aligned with a new sense of joy and a new sense of love and a new sense of appreciation for all the different elements that are appearing in our life. So that's why I encourage you, especially if you are just holding back and thinking about, do I really want to go with this, this program, and is this goofy old guy making the video somebody I want to trust? I would say, give it a spin. Allow yourself to play that game with the ego and challenge it on what it believes, challenge it on what it's trying to convince you of. Because the worst that could happen is that you could discover that all the enemies you thought you had actually were placed there in your path to help you look at yourself in more depth. And whenever we arrive at a point where an ancient hatred is suddenly flipped and turned into a present state of love, then we have experienced the highest level of the miracle that we're talking about here in A Course in Miracles. The miracle itself is not jumping up out of a bed and throwing away your crutches. The real miracle is happening in that journey through the mind that caused you to believe that you could be crippled. So we're really lifting ourselves up here. We're really opening doors that have been nailed shut for God only knows how many incarnations. But the beauty of it is, as you start to awaken, whether you're preaching about this or not, if you're, in your closet, reading the book, not talking to anybody about it, you're still contributing to the evolution of humanity. And the resolution of the schism that we've had going on since the beginning of time itself. So we're getting ourselves back to God, and in the process, we're dragging all of our loved ones and hated ones with us, kicking and screaming. And if you like to play devil's advocate, that's kind of a fun image to entertain, because ultimately, all of us are going to arrive at the same place. And once that occurs, this whole stitch in time will be resolved. Anyway, moving forward here, we did a couple of the lessons, and I think I'm going to skip over now to the Course itself. We're going to look at the origins of separation, and this is the text, chapter 2. And this is kind of, again, some edgy ideas that will be presented to you here. But they are quite beautiful and quite profound once you relax behind them. It says, the origins of separation. To extend is a fundamental aspect of God, which he gave to his Son. Okay, so basically, if we step back from that idea and just process that information, the idea of what God is extending, since there is only God, that's something that we have started to make an agreement upon. We have started to come to the possibility that nothing else exists apart from God. Then the only thing that could be extended was God itself. So in this first line that we're reading from this paragraph, it tells us to extend is a fundamental aspect of God which he gave to his son. So we have the same power. We can extend ourselves, and that can show up as our sons and daughters. That can show up as loving thoughts, healing thoughts, doing whatever is necessary, whatever is placed on your path. You can extend yourself, and yourself is part of God, and the God that is within you is love. So you're extending your love. You're extending God. God's extending itself, himself, herself, into you. And that's really kind of an amazingly mind-expanding idea, because we think of creativity as, oh, I'm going to carve carve a bluebird out of a piece of wood and give it to my uncle and blah, blah, blah. Our idea of extension is so objectified. And this is taking us back to an identity that is fundamental to all of us. It goes on to say, in the creation, God extended himself to his creations and imbued them with the same loving will to create. And this is something that we often avoid looking at. But down at the core of our being, we have this desire to create. There is this essence that is deeply rooted in our true self, in our true sense of self, that there is a need for us to give something to the world, to give something to humankind, to give something to our lover, to our neighbor, to our family. It's that creative urge that comes from the core of us, which is resting eternally in God. You have not only been fully created, but have also been created perfect. Well, that's a favorite line. Nobody's perfect. Well, we have to examine that too. Take a look at that. And once you recognize your own perfection, it's much easier to see the perfection in others. And you can flip that. Once you begin to see the perfection in others, it's much easier to identify that element within yourself. It says, there is no emptiness in you. Because of your likeness to your Creator, you are creative. No child of God can lose this ability because it is inherent in what he is. But he can use it inappropriately by projecting. The inappropriate use of extension or projection occurs when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists within you, and that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth. This process involves the following steps. First, you believe that what God created can be changed by your own mind. Second, you believe that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or lacking. And this is talking about you. This is talking about me. This is talking about us. We have accepted this idea that what God created, which is us, can be rendered imperfect or lacking. Third, you believe that you can distort the creations of God, including yourself. So next time you want to take a hatchet and go after Mr. Trump or Hillary or the Pope or the guy down at the end of the block, take 2 steps back and do a little of that inhale, exhale thing. That'll calm you down a little bit. Fourth, you believe that you can create yourself. This was a fatal error that nailed all of us. And that the direction of your own creation is up to you. And that's why there is the appearance of all this chaos around us. The truth is that what God created is eternally perfect. And God created you, God created me, and God created us all as one. There is no separation, there is no barrier, there is no veil. There is only our mental projection of our own fear and guilt about having believed that we managed to separate ourselves from God. So it goes on to say, these related distortions represent a picture of what actually occurred in the separation or the detour into fear. That's a good way to describe it. None of this existed before the separation, nor does it actually exist now. Everything God created is like him. And what is God? God is love. So God created love in all directions throughout eternity. Extinction, as undertaken by God, is similar to the inner radiance that the children of the Father inherit from him. Its real source is internal. This is as true of the Son as of the Father. In this sense, the creation includes both the creation of the Son by God and the Son's creations when his mind is healed. This requires God's endowment of the Son with free will, because all loving creation is freely given in one continuous line in which all aspects are of the same order. So, as we're looking at the truth of our existence, we come into an area where there's a huge head-on collision here between the ideas that have just been shared and this three-dimensional or four-dimensional or five-dimensional realm that we're currently existing in, because of the idea of objectification. Everything's broken apart. The whole universe is shattered. We have all these pieces, and we run around desperately trying to reassemble it, trying to figure out what the hell went wrong. The truth is, none of this is real. None of this has ever happened. We had a momentary flash of, the idea of falling asleep, in which we created an alternate reality, and the alternate reality is objectified. So in truth, you are existing with God, in God, extending God, who is yourself in all directions. And that's, such a completely and utterly abstract concept to what we can perceive or understand, comprehend in this physical world, that it really gets to be pretty resistant, and we end up frustrating ourselves when we're trying to reconcile all of this. So that's where we have to just be comfortable with the idea that we are the extension of God, and we are extending God ourselves. And that is the most profoundly beautiful idea that you can contemplate, really. It just means that you're God within God. So I hope you've enjoyed this evening's discussion here. We've had some kind of radical thoughts that popped up for everybody, and I do believe that, as we continue this journey of looking at A Course in Miracles, we're going to see parts of our own nature that we have been resistant to looking at. When I've noticed a lot of times when you give someone a compliment, they will take that compliment and turn it around and say, oh, well, I'm not really that good at doing this, or I'm not, yada, yada, yada. And we do have that attachment to our ego, and the ego is so severely flawed that it's hard for us to live in a state of accepting our true self and being able to love our true self and being able to embrace our true self, because we are created as perfect beings. We are eternal beings. And it's really very uplifting to dip into the Course. The Course is like a very deep well. We're always looking for the water from a deeper well. So go back to the well and enjoy those cool waters throughout the day. And all of a sudden you'll start to realize, hey, I'm not as bad as I thought I was. I can let go of those memories of what happened 28 years ago. When I tripped that kid on the playground in third grade, I don't need to carry that guilt anymore, because that was a dream I was having about him and me. So there's a lot to be said for entering into a relationship with A Course in Miracles. But at the bottom, you'll start to feel better about yourself almost immediately. And it is Rosh Hashanah for those who are of the Jewish persuasion. And one of my favorite customs of the year as we start the new Jewish year is to take a slice of an apple and to dip it into honey and crunch away at it. And it's best done by the light of a candle. But that little ritual is an affirmation that this coming year is going to be pretty damn sweet. So get yourself some honey, get an apple, light a candle tomorrow night. Celebrate the beauty of life, because it is a beautiful experience once you stop believing all of the terrible things that the chatterbrain ego mind is presenting to you. So anyway, get out there, share the love, pass the love around, and we will reconvene in 1 week.